See the lines? That's Africa. That's Africa.
I've been looking this way ever since I remember, and it ain't gonna change. So I don't care what them people say. I will forever be this way. I will forever be.
Take a close look at the pictures on your screen. All of these photos come from one of my favorite sources of Egyptian tomb paintings and hieroglyphic translations, Osirisnet.net. Many photos you may have seen on this channel, or in many other places, actually originated on this website, which is kept up by a French team of Egyptologists. You may have noticed by now that these photos have one thing in common. The average Egyptian in these tomb paintings is usually brown, dark brown, or reddish brown. I've taken the time to explore every page and photo on Osirisnet, and I have to say, the average royal ancient Egyptian depicted on these tomb paintings was usually some shade of dark brown. This would have been, once again, your stock Egyptian for a long time. That much is evident by observing the walls of Kemet all the way through its later periods, right here on Osirisnet. There's one problem though. Osirisnet is yet another Eurocentric website ran by Egypt groupies. Here on their homepage is featured a little slideshow of tomb paintings featured on this website. This site features a great many of these paintings. However, as we can see right here, they've taken it upon themselves to do what Eurocritics everywhere specialize in doing, finding strange looking photos out of the ordinary and presenting these as the average Egyptian tomb.
Creating tombs full of false passages, dead ends, pits, and other barriers. Among the most ingenious is the tomb of Teti et Saqqara.
Featured here on Osirisnet are a great many royal and noble tombs, along with the craftsmen and other servants beneath these royals and noble elite. Classic examples of real Egyptian kings, as presented on the walls of Kemet, are set aside for yet another picture of Caucasian dancing servants. Beautiful renditions of classic Nile Valley African life 3,000 years ago are never once featured on any book cover. Instead, it's always something as far away from royal as we can get, and it's always a slap in the face to these ancient individuals. Having said that, it is decidedly rare to find these flesh-colored Egyptian tomb paintings the further back in time you go. In fact, right here on Osirisnet, their collection of Old Kingdom wall paintings features fine examples of beautiful dark brown colors. And it, for the most part, always looks like that from the beginning.
I've been looking this way ever since I remember, and it ain't gonna change. So I don't care what them people say. I will forever be this way. I will forever be this way.
Osirisnet is a great website, but it's also an academic resource that buries the image of Egypt and presents it at the door as some kind of Caucasian spirit. If this petty argument over skin tone was as irrelevant as the Eurocritics make it out to be, wouldn't they just post all the best pictures that the people need to see, rather than constantly posting the same boring pictures out of a Charlton Heston movie? Some of the best work in Egyptian history is roundly ignored, while these petty and superficial presentations are presented as the face of Egypt with impunity. You don't have to take my word for it. You can go to Osirisnet yourself and click on any of the well-organized categories there. After seeing what these Egyptologists have presented as their homepage, let's take a look at what Osirisnet has posted in the Valley of the Kings. You'll see that by clicking on pretty much anything here will present you with some very spectacular images that are inexplicitly replaced with Caucasian dancers on the homepage. You can look at every tomb painting in the tomb of Ramses I, for example, along with the translation of every visible hieroglyph. You see, the Euro critics like to play this game of Where's Waldo, but I won't be playing that game anymore. Right here on this channel, we have now identified exactly who these people are and what we're looking at. And that's what this program is about, really, being on the lookout for little things like this that are slipped right under our noses and no one ever really pays attention. An important thing to remember is context. Many times, a Euro critic will be posting things out of context with the intention of using it as innuendo. This is how Greco-Roman Egyptian artifacts are displayed more prominently than the faces of the Pyramid Age, which are usually regulated to the back. Ra-Hotep has now ascended above Kasakemwe somehow, and it's irresponsible. Deir el-Medina is the name of an excavation site located at an old Egyptian village. It's here at this village that we find the late New Kingdom's craftsmen, more specifically, the people hired to do the work on the tombs of the royal family, mainly during the 19th to 20th dynasties. These examples you're looking at here come from a couple of these tombs. First, what needs to be pointed out is the proper context. These were not high officials or anybody at the king's court. We need to remember this when the Euro clowns start posting these pictures. The photos featured here are featured across the internet and plastered all over the History Channel and whatever else is out there. But the individuals these paintings belong to were simply not of the nobility of the ancient Egyptians. In fact, these people lived in a craftsman's village, not in any of the royal residences. They won't tell you this on TV. Having said that, here we have an individual who was a little higher up on the pecking order, but wasn't quite there yet. Osirisnet went to this tomb, and they tell us that the yellow color was deliberate and used in the setting of a style, as this was not how Egyptian artwork is traditionally painted. As we observe these works, we do see a yellow color distributed throughout, which tells us clearly that the yellow or golden color is symbolic. Osirisnet also reminds us here that pinkish colors were not normally used either. Instead, the Euro critics will post these pictures out of context without telling us this and claim it's the average Egyptian. To make a long story short, while the paintings in a tomb like this are all very impressive to the Euro critics, these are not of the nobility. Now, don't get me wrong, being in service of the king was not without its benefits, since individuals such as Ra-Modes were outfitted with up to 3 tombs, but these were still not royal tombs, just imitations. Therefore, we need to be careful with the context of what we observe and what we have presented to us. For instance, here we see the 3 goddesses of the Nile who protected the southern border south of Aswan. Note that all 3 are female. This calls for a special color treatment. This is from the tomb of Nakdamun. Back in the Middle Kingdom, Anuket was a goddess who was incorporated into the triad of Nile goddesses protecting Aswan. Note that she is a female. Super Egyptian or Phoenician 7, on the other hand, will stick this picture into their favorite mashup and present her as your average Egyptian. From the same tomb, Satet was the goddess of the inundation and was always depicted as a woman in a dress with the white crown of southern Egypt on her head. Because, you know, she was a goddess of the south. We see characters like this being painted yellow, gold, or flesh-toned. Or, as Osirisnet points out, are incorporated into a common symbolic theme of color. This is not to say that feminine Egyptian characters were not painted black or brown, because clearly they were. We just have to remember the context being used. On Osirisnet, we could read about how this lower hierarchy worked, with people at this village doing laundry, making shoes, carrying water, fishing, and making pottery, all for the service of individuals who themselves were in service of people more important than them. But look what it says here. Important in his position among craftsmen, but he did not belong to the Egyptian aristocracy. This is another case where people need to be realistic and stop jumping into Eurocentric Egyptian fantasies. This guy lived in a village, not that scene you saw in Gods of Egypt. One is royal and one is not, but the walls of the servants and their images are splashed on magazine covers, television, and Eurocentric YouTube videos. This is not to say that only Egyptian nobility should be presented. I'm only saying that lower quality examples are being pushed forward as traditional Egyptian art when it's clearly not. This is to the detriment of the educational value in which a lot of people are seeking out of this. But you won't get anywhere looking at the same 5 pictures and being a big baby. This brings us back to the point of this video, the continued observation of academia and Hollywood choosing their favorite images and putting more worthy images in the trash. For instance, instead of feeding us constant images of servants that people think are Europeans, how about a view from the Valley of the Kings instead? That's what I show on my channel. Here we see the Egyptian prince, Montuhotep, regulated to obscurity. The complete tombs of Amenhotep III and Thutmose IV are featured here, and we see it's the same thing, the ultimate black kings. And these paintings are consistent, going back to the Old Kingdom. These are the walls of the high officials of the Pyramid Age, the height of the Old Kingdom. Here we consistently see men with titles such as Supreme Judge and Visitor, First after the King, and Superintendent of the Great Court. Not a guy in charge of the fields in an Egyptian wig. These are the ultimate old school Egyptian elite. And here we can see clearly that the walls show us how consistently dark these people depicted themselves. But we see consistently these brown and reddish-brown Egyptian people in these pictures. As a matter of fact, every last photo in this segment is from an Old Kingdom tomb of the nobility. Now contrast this with the photo of Caucasian dancing servants, usually dished up to us as the face of ancient Egypt. Now let's regroup and finish this video up. By promoting these lighter colored and unusual pieces as the face of Egyptian tomb paintings on its homepage, Osirisnet gives itself away as another Eurocentric resource, and that's too bad because it gives a service and a disservice at the same time. This is evidenced by such lines being sprinkled into its pages like Nefertari's skin was painted black even though she was not a Nubian. Osirisnet, why would that matter? It's like saying Nero's hair was blonde even though he wasn't Scandinavian. Little things like this give them away as being petty racialists at heart who just so happen to be good Egyptologists with original research. There are a lot of people like this, but in this case, it'll never stop them from being Western European descendant Egypt groupies from France. The ancient Gauls, Celtics, and other tribes that hail out of France have absolutely nothing to show for 3,000 years of Egyptian history, except for their research of that history. And we thank them for that. But at the end of the day, we need to be on the lookout when people are presenting pictures to us out of context. Individuals who were not a part of the aristocracy are being presented as everyday upper-class Egyptians when they were, in fact, not. By looking at the walls of Kemet, whether the New Kingdom or the Old Kingdom, we see consistently that what is on the walls is not consistent with what is portrayed by mainstream Western academia. The Eurocritics will tell us skin color doesn't matter, but turn right around and post the complete opposite of these excellent works of art. They'll show us dancing servants instead. Why? Because it's the closest thing to white they can get. This explains the complete promotion of the Hellenistic period of Egypt in the West. The Eurocritics choose their favorite images and promote these inferior images over much more deserving and superior Egyptian antiquities. Why? Because Europeans in general have nothing to do absolutely with the establishment of Egyptian culture. They missed out, so they try to create their own fantasy version of history, but we won't be falling for that anymore. Proto-Indo-Europeans had a long way to go, and that's too bad. Osirisnet.net, shame on you for presenting ancient Kemet from behind a Eurocentric curtain. An entire website full of the darkest Egyptians you've seen, and once again, we are presented with Caucasian servants first. It is irresponsible, insecure, but unfortunately, very effective. So now the question